Hello, Namaskar, Khambagani people. Welcome back to our channel, Professor Tiwari, and my name is Amrita. So, in the last class, we studied about the class 10th. We have completed a chapter of class 10th, and in that, we have studied about the life process. We have completed. So now we are moving, instead of moving to chapter of class 10th again, we'll move to the chapter from class 11th. So we'll do one chapter from each class, and then we'll move back to class 9th. Okay. So the first chapter that I'm gonna pick up from class 11th is the unit of life, that is the cell. This is the chapter number 8, I guess, in the class 11. So the chapter is, I think it's chapter number 8, but I'm writing it 1. For class 11th, because it's the first chapter that we are taking in the biology right now, and the name of the chapter is Cell, the unit of life. Okay, so this is the name of the chapter that we're gonna cover. All right. So before we move ahead in this chapter, or in this whole chapter, if you just go back to the previous videos, then you can easily see that we have discussed the fundamental unit of life, that is cell, from class 9th, and this chapter is actually the extended part of that class 9 chapter only. Okay, but before moving ahead in this one, we'll just go to the basics that we have learned in class 9th also, and which also forms the basis of this chapter in class 11th. Okay, now first the first thing that we need to understand is what is cell. Like, you all must have studied about cell and must be studying from class 8th that what is cell. So cell, what is cell? Cell is the basic structural, functional and fundamental unit of life. Okay, so what we cell, if we need to define the cell, then it is basic structural, fundamental and functional unit of life. Okay, so this is what the cell is, which means it is the one which makes each and every organism. I'm talking about living organisms, like whether you take the plants, you take animals, or even you take the microorganisms. Okay, so they are the cell is the basic structural, fundamental and the functional unit of life. Okay, so that is what cell is. Now moving ahead in the cell is the cell theory. I'm not going like who gave the cell or what it's been done, or if you just look at it, then the Anton von Leeuwenhoek was the first person who actually discovered the live cell. He saw it under its microscope, and Robert Brown was the first person who saw the cell. Okay, that was in a cork. If you just go back to the previous videos from class 9, you can get the detailed understanding or detailed history of the whole cell structure, which I'm not discussing over here because I've already discussed in class 9th chapter. Okay, now moving ahead in the cell theory. So when we say cell theory, so what the cell theory is? Okay, so like we have studied about the cell theory in class 9 chapter also, but we'll just go again into that. So there were two scientists were there, that was the Matthias Schilden and Theodor Schwann was there. So like what they did, that was Matthias Schilden. Matthias Schilden in the year 1838. Okay, who was he? He was a German botanist. So Matthias Schilden in year 1838, he was a German botanist. What he did, he actually studied the cells of different plants. Okay, he studied about the cells of different plants, and he took variety of plants so that he can see that whether all of the plants are showing the same structure, whether they are they made up of cells only. So what he saw, that all of these plants, they have, all plants are made up of cells which form tissues. We know this thing, right, that cells, when group of cells they combine, they form the tissue. Similar type of cells, when they combine, they form a tissue. Okay, so they what the Matthew Sheldon discovered during his study on plants, that all these are each and every cell or each and every different plant is made up of cell. So cell is a common feature amongst all the plants, and when these cells group up together, they actually make a tissue. Okay. In the same time, there was another scientist that came up. I just write it over here for the another scientist. I'm just dropping this one out. So there was another side, like this was, we were talking about the plants. Okay, so there was another scientist that came up, and his name was Theodor Schwann. Okay, year was 1839, and he was an English. Who was he? He was an English British zoologist. You can say English zoologist or British zoologist. Okay, I just write it British in case you don't get confused. He was a British zoologist. So actually what he studied, he was studied different animal cells. Okay, he studied different animal cells, and why he studied different animal cells, it is the reason is because when he wanted to see whether like the same way the Matthew Sheldon studied that all the plants are made up of cells, whether all the animals are also made up of cells. So he did his studies on different animals, and he found out that all the animals have the presence of cells. So cells is a common feature which is present in each and every organism. Other than that, there was one very interesting thing that he gave, that he also gave the presence, or he also gave the you can say the proof of the existence of the plasma membrane. Okay, so also gave proof of, I'm just writing the PM for the plasma membrane, not the Prime Minister, but the PM, that is for the plasma membrane. So he also gave the proof for the plasma membrane, that there is a thin structure has been there which is present outside the cell, and that is the plasma membrane has been there. Okay, now like both of these scientists, after I just talk about the Theodor Schwann and the Matthew Sheldon, what was the basis of their, like what is the common basis of their study? The common basis of their study was cells. Okay, like they both were from this biology only, but one is studying the zoologist, which is a study of animals, and another one was studying the plants. But their whole basis of their study was the cells only. Okay, whether they are present in both the living organisms or they have something else, or what things can come up. Okay, so according to their study, like whatever studies they have done, they actually gave a hypothesis, I would say. The Schwann and the Sheldon, they gave the hypothesis. On the basis of that, he said that all the living organisms are made up of cells. Okay, they said that. So this was on the basis of study of Schwann. What he gave, he said that all Schwann and Sheldon okay, what they did, they gave an hypothesis. What was that hypothesis? That all living organisms are made up of cell. Okay, that was the first basis of the hypothesis. Okay, what was the second basis of their hypothesis? That cell is the structural, functional and fundamental unit of life. Okay, this is what they said. But still this, they gave the two hypotheses based on their studies, like all the living organisms are made up of cells, and cell is the basic structural, functional, fundamental unit of life. But there are still some questions which were being unanswered. The questions is like from where does a cell arise? From where do they come from? Okay, so this question was actually being answered by another scientist, and his name was Rudolf Virchow in the year 1855. Okay, so in the year 1855 there was another scientist that came up and who actually gave the idea of omnis cellula e cellula. Okay, omnis cellula e cellula, which is a French thing, which is a French one, and he actually, and the meaning of this omnis cellula e cellula is that the cell arise from the pre-existing cells. Okay, there's already a cell has been there. That cell will, before it dying, it will divide into two parts. Okay, and those new cells will arise from the pre-existing cells. Like suppose if I say there is a cell, so what it will do, it will divide into two cells. This cell will divide into two cells. Okay, so this is like that. So the cell arises from the pre-existing cells. Okay, that is the meaning of this. So this part which was missing from the cell theory got added up, and another thing which was given by Rudolf Virchow, I am writing with the red color for the Rudolf Virchow. Okay, that cells arise from pre-existing cells. Okay, so this was about the cell theory. So this is how the whole cell theory was being given, and this whole thing was, the whole hypothesis which was being given was actually the cell theory. Okay, so basically the three scientists gave their prominent ideas for the cell theory based on their relevant work, that is by the Schwann, by Schilden and by Rudolf Virchow. The first thing that was given by Schwann and Schilden was that all living organisms are made up of cells, and cell is a structural, functional and fundamental unit of life. Okay, another, there was a question that was missing out of this whole hypothesis of this cell theory was that from where does a cell come from? Okay, so that question was being answered by another scientist, Rudolf Virchow, in the year 1855, and according to his study, he gave a line omnis cellula e cellula. Omnis cellula e cellula means that cell arise from the pre-existing cells. Okay, that laid the basis of like from where does the cells come from, and this is how the whole cell theory got completed, and cell theory got its last answer, its last hypothesis, that cell arises from pre-existing cells. Okay. So this is all about the cell theory that we have just discussed. Now moving ahead into this one, we need to see like there are certain organisms. If you just look at the organisms, then all these organisms, as it was being reported by the Theodor Schwann, that plasma membrane has also been there. Okay, so now comes the plasma membrane, that all the living organisms have this delimiting agent. Okay, there's a delimiting thing has been there. Delimiting membrane has been there. Delimiting membrane means which means that membrane which actually separates a cell from its outside environment. Okay, the delimiting membrane was plasma membrane. Okay, which is present in animals and plants both. So delimiting membrane is a plasma membrane which is present, which actually separates the cells from its outer environment. Other than that, other than this one, there are other things which exist inside the cell. There are certain membrane bound organelles are being found. These membrane bound organelles. Okay. These membrane bound organelles, they are actually being found in eukaryotes only. We have studied about eukaryotes. If you just go back to the class 9th videos, you will get to know what eukaryotes are. Those organisms that have the membrane bound organelles present into the cell. There are certain organs of the cell which are present, which play different role, so to perform different functions of the cell. So they these organelles or these organs of the cell are only present in the eukaryotic organisms. Okay, and prokaryotes, what about prokaryotes? Prokaryotes lack them, lack membrane bound organelle. Okay, so prokaryotes don't have them, like bacteria don't have the membrane bound organelles. Okay, now talking about the membrane bound organelles or other thing, like which organelles were been there. Okay, if you just about the organelles, if you just name the membrane bound organelles that the eukaryotes have, is the ER, endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria. Other than that, microbodies are been there. Okay, Golgi is been there. Fine. Now there is another organelle which has been there, which is your ribosomes. Okay, these organelles are membrane bound. All these organelles are membrane bound. What about ribosomes? If you just look at these organelles, ER, mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, microbodies, Golgi, even more you can just lysosomes you can say. Okay, all these organelles are actually present in the eukaryotes because they are the membrane bound one. So they are present in the eukaryotes, which means they are absent in the prokaryotic organisms. But ribosome is a non-membrane bound organelle. Okay, because it is non-membrane bound, so it is present in prokaryotes as well as eukaryotes. Okay, so ribosome is present in both prokaryotic and eukaryotic organisms because it is a non-membrane bound organelle, which means it doesn't have a membrane present outside it. Okay, now other than that, there are some other organisms which okay, so other than this one, we have another thing which is common, like ribosome is common in between the prokaryotic organisms and the eukaryotic organisms, but there are some other organisms, you can say a part of a cell which is present in both eukaryotes and the prokaryotes, and that part of the cell which is common between the eukaryote and the prokaryote, it is a semi-liquid, it is a semi-fluid called as cytoplasm. This cytoplasm, which is a semi-fluid, it is present in pro and eukaryotes both. I just write it on that side. Okay, so it is present in pro and eukaryotes में present होता है ये, ठीक है? It is present in both the organisms. Okay, why this cytoplasm is so important? Because it is actually the, you can say it is actually the main arena or main center where each and every chemical process or you can say every activity takes place. Each and every chemical activity or any chemical reaction that has to take place, the basic area for them is the cytoplasm. Okay, so provides main arena for activity of cell. Okay, like whatever activities, like whether it's a formation of the protein or anything, any chemical activity that takes place, it is present in, it takes place in the cytoplasm, or there are certain enzymes which are being there, which are actually present in the cytoplasm, or they are being transported from there. Okay, they are being generated over there and then they are being transported to different cell organelles which are present into the cytoplasm. Other than that, other than providing the arena for the activity, it also provides nourishment, nutrients, you can say nutrients for cell and its organelle. Okay, all right, okay, fine. Okay, so now, like we were discussing about the membrane bound and non-membrane bound organelle. So we have seen that ribosome is the only, you can say, non-membrane bound organelle which is common between the prokaryotic organisms as well as eukaryotic organisms. When I say eukaryotic organisms, I include animals and plants both in that category, and prokaryotic means bacteria. Okay, so ribosome is a non-membrane bound organelle which is present in prokaryotes as well as in eukaryotes, but there is another non-membrane bound organelle is being found. Non-membrane bound organelle is being found which is called as centrioles. Okay, now this centriole is a non-membrane bound organelle, which means it doesn't have a membrane. And what is the role of this centriole? It helps in cell division. Okay, we'll discuss the centriole, how does the centriole helps in cell division in the later section of this chapter. Okay, all right. Now, like we have seen that centriole is a non-membrane bound organelle and is taking part in the cell division. Now, moving ahead into this one, there is one more thing which is present in some other part of the cell also. Okay, there is an organelle which you can find not only in the cell but at some other part also. Like, and the name of that is ribosomes. So ribosomes is actually present in chloroplast in plants. Okay, it is present in mitochondria. So mitochondria has its own ribosomes. Other than that, it is present on rough ER, rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, so it's actually reticulum only, endoplasmic reticulum only, which has the ribosome attached to it during the protein formation. So that is the one thing which was been there. Okay, now moving ahead. Okay, now moving ahead into this one, like we have discussed, like what organelles are being present in the eukaryote and what are present in the prokaryotes. Like there's a non-membrane bound structures are being there, which you can find both in prokaryotes and eukaryotes, which is a ribosome. Ribosome is also present in some different part. Other than that, centrioles play a very great role, a very important role during the cell division period. Now there is another thing, that cells actually don't have similar structure. Okay, which means they will differ in shape, they will differ in size, and they will differ in variety. Okay, so their shape, size and variety is completely different, or even the activities that they perform is also very different. And it is also important to know over here that the activities of the cell, like whatever activity the cell will gonna perform, is usually depends on its shape and size. Okay, like for example, if we just give an example, the size of the smallest organism which is present, it is mycoplasma. Okay, so mycoplasma is the smallest organism. Okay, it is a bacteria, and if you will be just surprised to know its size, it is 0.3 micrometer. So it is very small. 0.3 micrometer size is actually very small. Other than that, if you just look at the size of a bacteria, Mycoplasma prokaryote, it's a prokaryotic organism. It is the smallest organism that has a size of 0.3 micrometer. Bacteria actually has a size. It is greater than the mycoplasma. It is a size of 3.5 to 3 to 5 micrometer, which is, it is bigger than the size of the mycoplasma, but still it is smaller in structure. That is why you can't see the mycoplasma with your or bacteria with your naked eyes, okay, because we have certain limit to that. All right, now other than that, what about the humans? Like we have discussed the prokaryotic organisms. If we just look at the multicellular organisms, multicellular ones. So in multicellular organisms, if you just look at the size of the RBC, that is a red blood corpuscles has been there, the size of a red blood corpuscle is 7 micrometer, which means it is much bigger than the bacteria and the mycoplasma in comparison, but still you can't see the red blood corpuscles with your naked eyes, okay, because it is still not in the visible category for the naked eyes, okay. The largest cell, you can say single cell, I would like to add over here, the largest single cell that you can see with the naked eye is ostrich egg. So ostrich egg has the largest size present over here, okay. Now this is the largest cell in the animals. Now nerve cell, what about nerve cells? Nerve cells is actually they are the longest cell, okay. Ostrich egg is the largest single cell which you can see with the naked eyes, whereas the nerve cell is the longest cell that you can see with your naked eyes, okay. Other than that, like this is the size of the cell that we have just discussed. The cells have different shapes too, okay. If you just look at the shapes of cell, like how many different shapes are there. So we have disc shape, disc like, okay. We have cuboid, okay. We have polygonal, we have thread like, okay. We have columnar, okay, or even irregular, all right, fine. So we have, like if you just look at the sizes of the cell, it starts from the 0.3 micrometer, which is the smallest organism, that is the mycoplasma has the smallest, it has the smallest size in the nature, which is 0.3 micrometer, smallest organism exists in the environment. Other than that, bacteria has a very bigger size than in comparison to the size of the mycoplasma, that is 3 to 5 micrometer. Both mycoplasma and bacteria, they exist in the category of prokaryotes. When we discuss the prokaryotes in detail, we'll study about more organisms and their sizes. If you just look at in the multicellular organisms, because mycoplasma and bacteria, they both are single cellular organisms. When you see the multicellular organisms like humans or like other one, the size of the RBC, that is the red blood corpuscles, we can say, we don't say red blood cells. Even I left a question in the previous video. I'll just leave the question again. Why don't we say red blood cells instead? Why don't we say red blood cells? Instead we say red blood corpuscles. What is the reason behind calling it as corpuscles and not cells? Okay. So if you know the answer, please drop it in the comment box. So the size of the RBC is 7 micrometer. That is the size of the red blood corpuscles. The largest single cell that exists in the environment that you can see with your naked eye is the ostrich egg. Ostrich egg is a single cell. Okay. Longest cell that exists is the nerve cell. It is the longest one, okay, like around I think 90 centimeters the size of the nerve cell, okay. Shape of the cells, like as I said, the shape and the size and the activities of the cells varies, okay, like they have different sizes, they have different shapes, and according to the shape and size, they perform different activities. So if you just look at the shape of cells, then we have disc like shape, the cuboid has been there, there's a polygonal is been there, there's a thread like structure has been there, there's a columnar has been there, and there is an even irregular shape that can exist, okay. Now we have discussed the introductory part of the cell chapter, the unit of life, from class 11th, and this is the first chapter that we have just started. There is another more things that have been left in this chapter right now, but we'll discuss all those content or all those part in the next video. And if you have any questions, any doubts in this chapter and in this topic that we have discussed today, you can ask a question in the comment box. And please do like, subscribe and share the channel, and don't forget to hit the bell icon for more such updates. Thank you. Bye.